everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Vegan Proteins, Muscles by Brussels Radio. My name is Giacomo.
And I'm Danny.
And this is our 70th episode. Thanks so much for tuning in to another episode. We've been keeping busy here, getting ready for the holiday season, if you will. We even got a jump start on decorating for Christmas, which was unprecedented for us.
Yeah. We hope you guys had a wonderful Thanksgiving. If you celebrate Thanksgiving, ours was super chill. It was just me and Giacomo. We still made basically a feast for 2 people, which was gone by Sunday. And yet I still don't feel like we ate like jerks. Maybe you did. I didn't.
I was going into it and I was like, all right, I'm going to pace myself. And my second plate was, well, the first plate was pretty full, actually. And I was like, all right, I'm going to have a second plate anyway. And you looked at me and you're like, isn't this exactly what I tell the clients not to do? And I'm like, nobody sees what's going on right now. It's all good. But no, I don't feel like I overate, but I definitely enjoyed myself.
We got to be a little bit more creative with the recipes this year because it was just us. So instead of doing pumpkin pie, we did like a pumpkin cheesecake pie, which I really liked quite a bit. What else did we do that was weird? Oh, Giacomo made Brussels sprouts that were like lemon flavored. I thought he was making like a smoky maple Brussels sprouts, and then they came out and I was like, what are those seasoned with? And he's like, lemon. And I was like, that's weird for a Thanksgiving dinner.
Well, me and my creative self was like getting ready to prepare the Brussels sprouts, and Danny was like, this is your recipe. And I'm like, no, it's Martha Stewart's recipe. Let me Google that for myself. And then I went back and sure enough, I copied the recipe exactly, but it was not fall.
More like an Easter recipe, I would say, if you do Easter.
Yeah.
But yeah, we did decorate. We decorated that weekend, and we don't usually decorate until like the middle of December. But we are going to wait till the kids are here to get the tree. The kids are going to be here this weekend. They come here every other weekend, and we're going to take them to get the tree. With kids around, everything about Christmas is just so much more fun. That was one thing we learned last year, was having kids in the household makes every holiday like 10 times more fun.
5 times is crazy, but 10 times more fun.
Like 10 times. So I'm very excited to have them coming this weekend to get a tree.
Like if you put the cookies out, you can eat them and get away with them, and somehow the kids still believe that some magical creature came and...
What are you trying to say? What are you trying to say?
Don't spoil it for him.
Anyway, today's podcast episode is totally Giacomo's idea. He will be leading this conversation because I don't know if I have a lot to say about it.
I think you do.
Do you like know me or something?
I know what we've gone through with clients this year with restructuring how we planned for their competition seasons, whether it was for this year or for next year or what have you.
So what are we talking about today?
Exactly that. I want to discuss competitive bodybuilding and how this year has impacted competitors' ability to compete and how they plan for their prep and how they basically plan for their prep next year and all that. Like the logistics have changed a great deal and competitors have gone through an awful lot.
Yeah, that's true. That's definitely true. I don't know if people who don't compete in bodybuilding understand how much planning actually goes in to a successful competition season. They can literally be years in the making. And I would argue that a good competition season kind of has to be years in the making. A lot of people, built up for this 2020 show season for the past, 1, 2, 3, in Giacomo's case, 5 years just to have it go sideways. And I think we should preface this with the fact that in the grand scheme of things that are going on in the world, like who cares about competing in bodybuilding? It doesn't really rank compared to some of the other things that have happened in the world in the past year, and we know that. But we also coach bodybuilders, so this is something that we talk about.
The interesting part about this episode in particular is it can go any number of ways, because while on the whole I feel like there's some commonalities with how the bodybuilding world has been impacted, I feel like each individual has a crazy story to tell. The other thing is that this affects how people are planning for next year. So there are those who didn't know COVID was coming and had started their preps. Clients of ours or other competitors in general, the bodybuilding competitive world at large, had lots of competitors this year that were already in the mix.
Yeah, one of my clients, shout out Nadej, she was 2 weeks out when the lockdowns hit. If you've never been 2 weeks out, just know that at that point, every moment of your existence is basically painful and hard and exhausting and hungry, but you're like so close to the finish line, and then it just nope. And actually she handled it really, really gracefully, I think.
Well, and that's the thing. I think that competitors have discipline on their side and willpower on their side. Those who are seasoned veterans to this game or who have done enough research to take the time to do this right, like Danny said, they've set this up years in advance, or even if it's their first time going at it, they understand that it's not like a wham, bam, thank you, ma'am, 8 to 12 week process. Because if you do that, you're going to come out of the other side screwed up more likely than not, and you're probably not going to put your best foot forward. For those who have taken the 6 months to 12 months to prepare and execute for a show, it's been challenging to say the least as far as planning for. I mean, shows are canceled left and right. Surprisingly, there were actually shows that are going on right now and that went on.
There were still shows this year, and I think a lot of, if you're not super into the bodybuilding competition scene, you probably wouldn't know that. Shows still happened, but largely from my perspective, they didn't look like a whole lot of fun. For example, in a normal non-COVID time bodybuilding show, you would come in the morning and they would run through, men's bodybuilding, men's physique, women's figure, women's bikini, and they would do pre-judging for all of that. And that would, sometimes go from like 9 in the morning to 2 in the afternoon, just the pre-judging. Then you go backstage and wait. And then there's the night show or finals where everybody comes out and does their individual routine and then they award the winners. Now, from a competitor standpoint, I hate that format. And I think a lot of people hate that format. Like, nobody wants to come in and spend, 15 hours backstage trying to maintain their pump and their tan and not screw up their hair or their makeup. And it's not a super fun day, actually. So I'm not mourning the loss of those. But with COVID, if there was going to be a show, they would just have like all of women's bodybuilding, in a lot of cases, line up outside the venue. So one gal I watched, her show was canceled and moved, then canceled and moved. Then they actually had it. She had to pump up outside with no equipment. Her tan was melting off of her. They walked in, immediately walked onto the stage. There's no audience. You can't have an audience. And then they awarded them and then she marched off and that was it. Like, you just spent a long ass time doing it for that. If you love bodybuilding, it doesn't matter who's there to see you. You're doing it because you love it. It's not just to like get an audience to cheer for you or whatever. You're not doing it for a $2 plastic trophy. You're doing it because you love it. But still, there is a competitor experience that a lot of people do want to have, and especially for people who are in their first season right now, like, this wasn't the year.
Personally, I had 8 clients who were already in competition prep before COVID hit. 8 clients. And out of those 8 clients, 4 dropped out. 2 got stage lean but did not compete.
Brutal.
1 has competed, I think 2 shows, and then the other is actually competing for the first time this weekend. So I guess by the time this episode comes out, the day after, and then the following week. So just to give you an idea, like, that is uncommon. I mean, there is drop off during competition prep because life happens and you have to balance your life and you can only choose to forgo so many things that can happen. In order to go through a successful prep, timing has to be on your side. Right. This year was one of those years where timing was not on most people's sides. And even if like your personal life was put together and there were no reasons to have sidelined yourself, there was still the fact that there was no show left for you to compete at. Like, how crazy is that?
I mean, I don't want to make it sound like nobody got to compete. I know several vegans who had great seasons, actually. Erin Fergus killed it, won her first pro show in women's physique looking just like superhuman. No question. Natalie Matthews had a great season, but I know it was super challenging for her to nail down shows that she could actually do. Corinne Sutton surprised everyone and stepped on stage. Of course, he looked incredible because when does he not? Who else? Who am I forgetting? Oh, Nicole and Kevin Gugia. Gugia? I don't actually know how to pronounce their last name. Sorry, guys. But they both won their IFBB Pro cards during COVID. Impressive. Like, there are people still out there competing. It's just, on the whole, would I have recommended it to a newbie? Hell no. hell no, this is not the experience that I would want somebody to have their first time going through a competition season. Like, once everybody I just mentioned is a very seasoned competitor, they don't care. At that point, you're not doing it for the audience, you're doing it for yourself. For a lot of people, this is almost like a bucket list item. Which, I don't recommend, but it still is for a lot of people. They want that day of like glam where it's all about them. And unfortunately, if that's what you were hoping for this year, you were probably going to be let down. But what does this mean going forward?
And that's exactly where I'm going in my head, because we have people reaching out to us now that are saying, hey, I want to compete next year. And I'm having the conversation with them right away and being like, yeah, it's an extreme sport, and if the community is able to put on a show, they most likely will. I think we've proven that this year with lots of shows, competitors, and lots of successes. However, I mean, if things get locked down, there's no breaking the law. It's not like they're going to run a show if there's can't gather and run a show. I mean, even if we do things responsibly and socially distance and what have you, like if you're not allowed to run a show, you're not allowed to run a show. So it does put a big question mark on 2021.
Yeah, I actually normally during competition season, I mean, I normally have like a dozen or more clients who are, that's the goal. It's not like a lifestyle client. They're stepping on stage on a certain date. So this was like the weirdest year of coaching for me ever, because it was just like all lifestyle, it was fun actually. It was different than what I normally do, which is usually a good mix of lifestyle and competition. This was all lifestyle. And a lot of that lifestyle coaching was with competitors who were basically like losing their damn minds because they can't compete and they couldn't get to a gym. So interesting coaching year. But yes, we do have a couple of people right now that are planning on competing in 2021, some of them for their first season. Without us knowing what's going to happen in 2021, I think, hope, pray, whatever, that we will have a vaccine and things will ease up in the spring. That's what I'm thinking. I think by the spring it should be more chill, because I think winter's going to be pretty gnarly. That's my guess. I mean, it's already pretty gnarly and winter hasn't even started. But what I'm telling those clients right now is to tentatively shoot for late summer or fall.
And that's my question to you, actually. Do you have any competitors that planned to compete next year and have been thinking about this since before COVID?
Not specifically. Several clients were planning on competing this year, and likely as soon as the restrictions are lifted, they will compete. So I have lots of clients who will probably compete in 2021, but because we've just stayed the course and not done anything crazy, their building seasons, their off seasons have continued to remain productive. So when the time comes to pull the trigger on that prep, we're going to be good. It's the newer people that are just coming to us like, hey, I want to compete in 2021. It's like, all right, I feel like we're rolling the dice right now with what's going to happen. But regardless, the goal is always to build as much muscle as possible without putting on too much body fat, optimize metabolism, get the habits that you need in place, firmly in place before you even think about dieting. And if we can do that and shoot for late summer, early fall, then I think we'll be in okay shape. My fear is like, okay, what if we get that far and then it's like, whoops, we're not. What do we say to those people?
Well, I think that's where you set the expectations right from the start. I think it makes it easier to make decisions, and it makes it easier for both the coach and the client to be on the lookout for the ever-changing climate in the world right now, essentially, right? Because things could be better by the spring, they could be better by the fall, they could go through, we really don't have answers. We have predictions, probabilities, but no concrete answers yet. But I feel like if you go in with the right kind of expectation, so here's the thing. We're talking a lot about the pandemic and how that affected competition seasons. The truth is that because this is a sport that requires long-term planning for something that you do that lasts for 8 to 12 minutes, which is crazy when you think about it, you have to basically assume that you may not be able to complete your prep. And this is something that our coaches at 3DMJ, or our coach Berto's and their crew have talked about. Essentially, it's like the more you get at this, the longer term the plan has to be. Especially after your first show, you're looking at literally taking anywhere from 2 to upwards of 7 years to plan for that 10 to 30 minutes on stage over the course of a couple of weeks. Who can control that amount of time in their life? Whose time is their own for that long of a period of time? Virtually nobody. At one point or another, something's going to happen in your life. So you maybe get lucky and you may be able to see your prep through fruition, or you may have to wind up knowing that you can't get to the stage, or you can't get stage lean. You may have to make that mature decision for any number of reasons. So it's easy to be like, damn, pandemic, and like this thwarted my plans. But I think a seasoned competitor and someone who is willing to take the risk and do this kind of extreme sport needs to go into it with the expectation that they may not be able to finish what they started.
Well, I think it's not, don't like go into it expecting to not finish, but go into it with the maturity to recognize when like to push forward would actually be a dumb thing to do, like more harmful than good, right? So when the kids, I mean, you started a prep this year, it actually turned out, in my opinion, it turned out to be a blessing in disguise that you called it quits, because if you hadn't, like, you would have been one of the people in this exact same boat that we're talking about.
Well, we've talked about this privately. I honestly would have loved to be that person, because I did put 5 years worth of my time, energy, and emotion into preparing to compete this year. COVID wasn't what stopped me. I made the mature decision to be emotionally present and available for my family and physically present because I needed to. I didn't want to be that hangry, hungry person who was distracted and had other responsibilities.
Around 2 babies that we were caring for at the time.
Yeah, it's just not, it's something that's honestly tough to talk about. It's hard for me to bring to the surface. I don't like, it feels somewhat selfish and also just hard to unpack and put out there. But yeah, no, it's true. But that's what you do as obviously, like, competition is very, very important to me. It's one of the most important things in my life as far as a personal passion, but it doesn't define me, and it's not the only thing that makes me who I am. I mean, the other part of me realizes that I have responsibilities, or at least I can choose to have responsibilities that I otherwise don't need to take on. So yeah, that's been really challenging for me this year personally.
Yeah, it was pretty crazy. You know, if you've listened to that podcast back in probably April when we put it out, we were caring for our niece and nephew and had been for 6 months. And, you know, we don't have kids on purpose. So to just overnight suddenly have to learn how to be parents to an infant and a toddler, it was super, super intense. And then you stack a competition prep on top of that. It just seemed, I mean, it was just poor timing.
The worst. I actually got, and I say it in my head constantly, even though I try to not lament, I can't help it. I process these emotions whether I want them or not. And I keep saying to myself, like, I didn't even cross the starting line. The amount of times I say that to myself and it like becomes this depressing thought that just flips through my mind. I'm like, damn it. Because it's like 5 years worth of preparing and I got to the start line. I had like the perfect setup on paper, everything like time-wise. Physically, I was so ready to cross the start line and absolutely kill it. And I can't replicate this unless I choose to not compete until 2025.
I think you can replicate it. I personally believe that you can get right back in that outstanding, just because it didn't go the way that you planned it to go. All that 5 years that you put into positioning yourself in that place didn't just disappear because you did a 3-month cut.
No, some things went away though. I mean, I lost some muscle. I lost my ability to have the healthiest metabolism possible before getting into it. I definitely lost some of my advantages to...
Yeah, and then we lost the gym because of COVID.
Well, so we had our home gym.
It took a while before we got that shit settled.
Right. So
wow, has this turned into a therapy session? I think it has. Sorry, guys.
That's okay. The truth is that you can take all these things that can become tough to reckon with and to talk yourself through, but if you don't make that mature decision to stop the thought of competing and actually do it, you can wind up wrecking your ability to compete in the future. I knew right then and there that if I chose to keep going, not only would I have been unsuccessful in competing because we had family responsibilities, I also would have wrecked my chance to compete next year, which right now it's still a possibility. Unlikely, because I feel like I still do have other responsibilities that are going to come up, but I have the possibility to compete next year or the year after. And that just would not have been possible had I just kept pushing and being like, I'm going to do this thing because I'm tough and I can get through it. I'm like, no, sometimes you have to think about what you're doing as opposed to just putting your head down and doing the work.
Yeah, I don't even think it needs to be something that dramatic to pull the plug on a prep personally. In 2017, I started a prep and I literally got like 4 weeks in and realized my heart wasn't in it. My heart was not in that prep. My brain was just not ready to be in that kind of a caloric deficit. And just a few weeks in, I was like, you know what? Nah. And I just went back to building for another year and it worked out pretty well, one could say, because that year Every bad thing that could possibly happen to a human being seemed to happen to me that year. My dad died. I got Lyme disease. I broke my ankle. I threw my back out, and some other things we aren't going to bring up. But yeah, it doesn't even have to be that dramatic. I'm just thinking about, are competitions in general going to change in the future? My big hope is that the day show, night show format just goes away, just disappears, because it is terrible from a competitor perspective. And I think that the mindset of people not hovering in crowds for longer than they need to, if that like sticks around long enough. Giacomo is laughing because I'm so introverted. I'm like, can we just not all hover in crowds for no reason? Because I hate that when there's not a pandemic.
I'm thinking to myself, like, the people who put on the shows are usually competitors or know of competitors, and they're all like, if we're suffering, you're gonna suffer with us, and you're gonna sit here for the next 10 hours.
Man, when we went to Worlds in 2019, yeah, it was last November. Actually, we went to Worlds. It started at like 9 in the morning, maybe earlier, because I think we showed up after it had started. It started early in the morning, and like we didn't leave as spectators. We didn't leave until like 1 in the morning. We didn't even finish it. Do you remember? Because we left before bikini. We left. So that thing probably went on till like 3 in the morning. That's gross. How are you going to expect an athlete to look their best?
3 in the morning?
How can you peak somebody to maintain that peak for like 20 hours? That's ridiculous. Anyway, I hope that goes away. I wonder what else will change.
I don't know if that will change. I feel like as soon as spectators are allowed again, that there are going to be some grandiose plans to have all the seats, all the prejudging, fanfare, right? Old habits die hard.
You know what I think will be cool if this changes in the future? Even little local shows have been live streaming their shows, because there is no audience, and I would love it if more small shows or natural shows got live streamed, because, we have clients that compete all over the country and we don't actually get to see it happen live. We just have to wait to get pictures later, and that would be so neat to actually be able to just like watch our clients compete regardless of where they are.
Well, we were in the gym, and for some reason, like, we just so happened to catch Erin Fergus live while we were training.
Well, I knew she was she said what time she was going on, so I was trying to catch it, but I didn't know if I was going to be able to catch it, and we caught it just as she won gold. It was awesome.
Yep. And then I was thinking about, shout out Lindsay Register, my client who's competing tomorrow by the time this comes out, and she told me that she's going to be on a live feed as well, which is so exciting from a coach's / fans perspective. Like, you get to watch the competitor, and it also makes it so that people don't have to put themselves at any risk. They get to stay home.
Well, put themselves at any risk, but also, like, here's the facts. Most of the time when somebody is competing in bodybuilding and all their friends and family come out to watch it, like, they're not having fun. I'm sorry. I'm just going to say it. Unless your family and friends are already interested in bodybuilding, they don't want to come watch a bodybuilding show. They want to come watch you. They want to come support you. But as far as bodybuilding goes, there's nothing funnier than sitting in an audience watching a bodybuilding show surrounded by people who have no clue what's going on. You just hear them leaning over and whispering to each other like, I don't get it. They all look the same. How can they pick a winner? And it's hilarious. And they're dreadfully bored the second you're not on stage. And I remember the first time my family came to watch me compete, when the bikini girls came out and started doing their, sassy little walk, and my family had to watch them, which is super, super uncomfortable for people who are not familiar with what the bikini division is. My, at the time, 23-year-old brother wanted to disappear into the floor. He wanted the floor to open up and suck him straight down into hell, because he did not want to watch bikini girls sitting next to his mother. And more than that, he leaned over to my mom and he was like, Danny's not going to come out and do that, is she? Danny's not going to do that, right? Which, figure doesn't do that. But
and I'm going to embarrass Billy right now because I can.
Because he'll never listen to this.
Obviously, he was paying attention because he learned how to pose pretty well. He was able to replicate those bikini poses better than I could, actually. So yeah, I guess you take something out of it.
The point of that was that I think if they live stream the shows, people will be a lot more comfortable, and they'll be a lot happier to watch the people that they want to watch without having to try and understand anything else that is happening. Because just because we love bodybuilding does not mean that everybody loves bodybuilding. There's no reason to take offense to that. It's weird to people who are not into this. Really, stop and think about it. Bodybuilding is weird.
Okay, so new technologies, possibly more live streaming, prejudging and finals together, so shorter shows, better experience for the spectators and the competitors.
I think more people will be learning how to do their own tan because, they couldn't just have all of those people standing in a room butt naked spraying aerosols everywhere. I don't know. I haven't actually seen that yet.
And this kind of makes me think about a little more of the overarching theme, not just for competitors, but for athletes in general. I feel like this year has helped us all become a little more resilient.
Oh, yeah. The gyms just closed down in a lot of places for a second time, right? Like they all closed down in March, and then a lot of places they opened up, but right now in November, a lot of them are closing down again. And my clients that live in places where they're closing down again, they're not so freaked out this time. The first time, it was just like absolute mayhem trying to get all of the people set up with at-home workouts, and they had to be different for everybody. I mean, all the workouts are different for everybody, but they're all usually using similar equipment at the gym. Now it was like, oh, you have this weird Body Boss thing at home that I've never heard of? Okay, cool. Let's make a routine out of that thing I've never seen before for every single client. But now the second time, they're just like, oh, well, it kind of sucks, but at least now I know. I know what to do. And more than that, the gyms closed down and nothing terrible happened to anybody. None of our clients lost all their muscle or ballooned up over the months that they were closed. Everybody came out either the same or better than when the lockdown first started, which is great. You might be like, but if they came out the same, what's the point? Listen, treading water during a storm is a feat in and of itself. And that's kind of what we've all been through.
It really is, because the truth is that the more that you can go through, it's not that you can endure more, it's that when there's nothing going on, you're that much stronger, right? You're literally able to plan for pretty much anything without thinking that you need to plan for pretty much everything. I think the opposite is true when you get hit in the face with stuff and you're not ready or you don't get through it gracefully. Right? You don't work on yourself as you're going through something. What happens is the next time that something goes on, you'll be thinking about it all the way leading up into whatever it is that might go wrong. It's like, oh my gosh, do I have to plan for the worst? Is everything going to be okay? Blah, blah, blah. It's anxiety inducing. But when you take something that is going to induce anxiety and you go through it and you become a more resilient person, then you can chill after the fact because you know with confidence that should something else happen, and you're not thinking about something else happening down the line. However, should something else happen, you'll be ready for it and you'll know that you'll be able to handle it in the future. If gyms get closed for whatever reason, or say that you're traveling and in between gyms, you'll know how to stay active. If you're traveling for work, you'll know how to stay active. All these things that I feel like as coaches, we've dealt with in the past, and clients have thrown their hands up in the air. I don't know what to do. I'm at a hotel. How do I train? There's no gym. Oh my gosh. It's I don't think we're going to be having those conversations in the future with clients anymore, or at least not nearly as often for those who have been able to go through 2020 and find a way, no matter what went on, no matter what went down, because things got real dicey for a minute. They were changing on a week-to-week basis.
Do you remember Ashley Markham, the brunette bodybuilder on Instagram,
Mm-hmm.
when everything first locked down? This girl was squatting with a bamboo thing she found on the side of the road with water jugs full up on each side of it. I mean, she had the craziest homemade gym equipment I've ever seen. And honestly, that was super inspiring to watch her figure this out. Now she has real gym equipment, but that was crazy to watch, because she was in an apartment with nothing, literally building weights.
Yeah.
We saw all kinds of crazy stuff, but that was my favorite.
Yeah, my client Shanti, before I even got a chance to find out that her gym got shut down, she was lifting her couch. I'm okay, right on. You do what you need to do to stay active.
Oh yeah, Jeff Nippard on YouTube was deadlifting his couch at home. That was one of his first lockdown videos. He's just deadlifting the couch, which is a great idea. Human beings are pretty resilient, that's all I'll say. But if you found that you were not one of the people that, just quote unquote found a way through 2020, don't beat yourself up over it. You can get back on track. You absolutely can get back on track. We did actually create a plan deliberately for people who fell off track in 2020 who want to get back on track and build momentum. It's called the 28-day Overhaul. It has nutrition guides where you calculate your nutrition needs, training programs that can be done at home, mobility, shopping lists, sample meal plans, et cetera, et cetera. It's a really, really cool program. We've had over 400 people sign up for it already. So if you're interested in that, check out veganproteins.com. It is right there on the main page.
And we also have the third Vegan Strong box out now, the December box. It's ready to order. And we're shipping them out. Are we shipping them out?
We're shipping them out by the 10th so that everybody can get them by Christmas, because a lot of people are getting them not for themselves necessarily, but as gifts for other people, which I think is a brilliant idea.
Oh yeah, how many things are in there? Like how many snacks and goodies? And...
I don't know exactly how many are in December yet. I haven't counted, but November was like 26 different items. So like food items, a surprise item that could be a book or a Vegan Strong swag or a fitness item. There's just such an incredible variety of things in these boxes. I'm not the one that acquires these products. Another person on our team acquires them. They just show up at my door and I'm like, this box is gonna be lit. And then we put them together and they are really, really cool. It's like vegan cuts times 10 for vegan athletes specifically. Like no shade, Vegan Cuts. This is a not-for-profit organization. Like no money is going in our pocket for this. But I used to be signed up with Vegan Cuts and it was good and it was fun. But then eventually it was like you got like 5 or 8 little samples and it just didn't seem like worth it anymore. This box is like stuffed. It's a 7-pound box stuffed with vegan snacks and goodies and information and coupons. And yeah, they're $49.99. October's was worth $150. The value of everything inside was worth $150. November's was the same. And to the best of my knowledge, December's will be the same as well.
It's an absolute no-brainer for a gift for someone else or for yourself. Like you really can't go wrong.
And if you're interested in that, go check out veganstrong.com. Moving on to our question and answer segment, one for Giacomo. I've been eating super green, low-fat, balanced whole foods diet, and I'm bloated usually, especially at night. Mornings, I will usually have a flat stomach, but I stay around 1,300 to 1,400 calories because my goal is to lose fat and gain muscle / body recomp. Then yesterday I said F it and ate a whole thing of garlic bread and like 2 servings of pasta with a lot of vegan cheese, and on top of that, a Pepsi. It was a night. But then this morning, I woke up with a flatter stomach than I had the day before. Like, what is this?
I'm thinking in my head how I would reverse engineer this, but the answer is not that complicated. It's pretty simple, actually. You were bloated and backed up most likely because you were eating fibrous, voluminous food to stay satiated. This can happen unintentionally when someone's in a caloric deficit, because when you're eating less, you want to feel full and you also want to make sure that you're eating nutritionally dense food, because you got to get your micros in and you got to keep healthy. The less food you eat, the more important it becomes to focus on getting your nutrients in. That being said, there is the possibility of going overboard and winding up getting too many fibrous, voluminous foods in, hence the digestive discomfort, which I'm sure you were experiencing, or at least it sounds like you were. Then it leads to back up, bloating, and with that, yeah, that's probably what happened. And then the day after, you were having bread, soda, like nothing that had a lot of fiber in it. Calorically dense food that was mostly low in fiber, not nutritionally dense either. That's neither here nor there. Point is that you were able to balance out your fiber intake a little bit by eating foods that were less fibrous, and that's why you felt better. It's not because you were, it's like one of those things where it's like, oh, well, I'm not eating well, but I'm feeling okay. What's up with that? It's more along the lines of, well, I'm not overdoing it on fiber, therefore I'm not going to be backed up. So I think what would be helpful to focus on in the future is make sure you're getting your nutrients in, make sure you're eating fibrous food, but also be careful of how much fiber you're getting in. For me, I track my fiber, at least in the beginning, to make sure I'm not overdoing it. If I know I'm the type of person that's going to wind up getting in a lot of greens and a lot of nutritious food when I'm in a caloric deficit, like most people, honestly. And I try to get in no more than, and there's different ways to calculate this, but for me, I usually say get in anywhere from 14 to 28% of your calories in, and no more than that in fiber. Any more than that and you're overdoing it. And again, there's all kinds of different ways you can calculate this. For me, I find that formula works. All right, this question's for you, Danny. I have a gaunt face from being underweight most of my life. As my body looks better, my face looks worse. Even when I gain weight, the fat just won't go to my face. Do I have to choose between my body and my face?
Wow, this is a really tough question, and I totally know exactly what this person means. As you get leaner, you lose body fat from everywhere. in your body, head to toe. So yes, that's your abs and your glutes and your thighs. It's also like weird places like your face and your hands and the bottoms of your feet, like places you wouldn't even think of. But when you lose fat from your face, you lose some of that youthful look. If you look at a lot of competitors, for example, on show day, they look way older than they actually are. All of us look older than we actually are on show day, because our faces are so lean. So unfortunately, the same way you can't choose where we lose body fat, we also can't choose where we gain body fat back. So to the question, do I have to choose between my body and my face? Yes, kind of. I mean, there's no way to gain fat in your face without, likely, if this is your body type, gaining fat in your bodies. Now, I have some clients who they'll gain fat in their face and still have like 6-pack abs. But, you know, everybody is different. I know that there are procedures that exist to either put stuff in your face, like fillers in your face, to fill out the skin when you've lost fat. Because also, as we age, even if you aren't getting leaner, we lose fat from our faces as we age. So this is only compounded with age. So I do know some people get fillers. I don't actually know anything about them. I think a lot of them aren't vegan. I think there might be one or two that is vegan. Like I've kind of heard that in passing, but I don't know a lot about it. But I know that a lot of people, men and women that I know, when they're not happy with their face and how lean it is, they'll go get fillers put in their face. You can also, and I do know this because my surgeon talked about it when I had my abdominoplasty, you can have fat sucked out of one spot in your body and put into your face, which is crazy. That sounds crazy, but that's a thing that they can do. So I'm not recommending either of these procedures at all. I'm just letting you know that they exist. If you have been underweight your whole life, though, I would focus on trying to get your body weight in a healthy place, and that might alone end up putting some fat back into your face and making it look, you know, better from your perspective. But in terms of, do I have to choose between my body and my face? Unfortunately, the answer there is probably yes. If you want your body to be super shredded, you need to make peace with the fact that your face is going to look pretty gaunt. If you want your face to be fuller, you might need to make peace with the fact that you carry more body fat head to toe than you would like to. Boy, that was a depressing answer. But hey, I'm not gonna lie to you. I'm not gonna give you some spiel about some special creams that'll plump up your face or anything like that. Like, no, you can take good care of your skin. You can make your skin look as good as possible, but there isn't a cream on earth that is gonna add fat to your face. All right, everybody, thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of Vegan Proteins Muscles by Brussels Radio. If you have not yet, come over to Facebook and join our Muscles by Brussels Facebook group. We would love to have you there. And if you have any questions or even topics that you'd like covered on this podcast, feel free to reach out to us on Facebook, Instagram, Vegan Proteins, and at Muscles by Brussels, YouTube, or you could even just email us veganproteins@gmail.com. We love to hear from you. Thanks again so much for tuning in. My name is Danny.
And I'm Giacomo.
And we will talk to you soon.